Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Scotty Roberts, and there is my studio wife, my radio wife, my counterpart, Wendy Robertson.
Who's the
And how you doing today? I don't hear you, Wendy. Your mic is not on.
Well, it should
There it
be.
is. There it is. It should be. Now it is. All right. Welcome to the program, everybody. Thank you for waiting an extra couple of minutes while we got ourselves settled in. And it is the second day of the new year. My year's going all right so far. How's your year going? Only
Uh, well, it's only day 2, so it's got time to get better, and and also
there you go. Do you know it's a leap year this year?
is it really? Wow.
Yeah. So we're
Cool.
going to have a February 29th this year. Wasn't
Ah,
there some movie? And it's not a
yeah.
guy film. It's not, nobody's falling to their death off the Nakatomi Tower or blowing anything up, but it's there was a sweet romance, and I don't remember who was in it. I don't remember the names. Called
Yeah.
Leap Year, and it takes place in Ireland, and it's a fun movie. It's a very nice,
And
sweet romantic film.
Curtis has got a question for me down there, hasn't he? Can you see it?
Let's see. You have been asked a question.
I have.
Curtis, Wendy, can you tell me here? Let me put it up on the screen, shall we? So we can see that. Wendy, can you tell me why the BBC is killing Doctor Who?
Because they've all gone woke. And
Yep.
I mean, the thing is, Doctor Who's always been far out, and looking back over the years, it's been crazy in some of the things as well. But it's gone very politically correct and very woke. But having said that, if you're a Whovian, you kind of stick with it.
See, and I don't follow Doctor Who that much. Hey, Tracy. I don't follow Doctor Who. I've watched it regularly in the past, but I'm not up on the new stuff. I hadn't heard they're killing off Doctor Who permanently.
They're not killing it off. It's just the fact that they're making it. It's very woke in lots of ways.
Oh, you're talking about metaphorically. They're killing the
Very
series.
woke.
Yeah. Everything's got to go woke, and it's. I wish they would stop doing that.
I
Just
know.
stand out and make a film, make a series that is. I saw somebody. Who was it? It was an actor, and he was saying they no longer make films for the sake of making art or television. It's all they follow what the crowd they think the crowd wants or what they're being told needs to be done. And the wokeism, buys you audience, and therefore advertisers. And so art doesn't get done anymore. Good doesn't get done anymore. I just watched a movie on that topic. A movie, one of the most unwoke movies I have seen in a very long time, and it was The Sound of Freedom, and it was about pedophilia, the pedophilia market that's out there. They say it's something like a $50 billion a year, or was it $150 billion a year? And it was the actor Jim Caviezel, who played most notably Jesus in The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
But he was the government agent in this, and it's based on a true story of this guy that helped close this ring down. And I got to tell you, it was riveting. It was emotionally exhausting, and it was emotional. There were a couple of times that cracked me wide open during that movie. And so that was well done. But they did it in a way, if they had done it as a woke film, it would be very different.
Yes.
And they'd have changed the main character to a woman, lesbian, probably. And so, or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with being a lesbian if that's what you want to do, folks, but I'm just saying. When it becomes a political movement, you got a problem.
Yeah.
So, so welcome, everybody. That's not what the show is about today. I'm fighting with a bit of a virus our family has picked up once again. Kids in school, they bring home the funniest things. And one of them has been this virus. My wife's got it. She went to work the last couple of days, but she's She almost didn't go in today. Her voice is gone. Mine is almost gone. It was gone more this morning. I talked to you, Wendy, this morning,
Mhm.
and my voice was almost gone then.
It was
So
very,
I've been,
but it sounded very sexy, Scotty. So you're all right.
oh, why? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Or I sounded like a boy in puberty. My voice breaking.
You sounded great.
And so, well, thank you. So today we're going to talk about something that once again has been requested. We hardly have to come up with topics for this show
Yeah.
because it seems they come to us or they're presented to us.
They're like, let's get Scotty and Wendy to do this.
And yes, because I could talk about this on my show from a totally political and psychological point of view and talk about how it affects us all, this topic. Yet, Wendy and I, we've gotten to doing these shows that all revolve around, well, face it, folks, our show, Wendy's and my show, it's about sexuality. It's about all the fun stuff that goes along with that, all the bad stuff that goes along with that. And we tend to talk about a lot of these topics, and we have fun doing it. And I'm glad Wendy is there dressing up for the occasion. So it makes me happy. So
Like to put a smile on your face.
why, thank you. And it certainly does. May I say, unabashedly. So today, there's elderberries growling at you again. Gruff, rough, he says.
Woof woof.
There he is. Woof, woof.
It took me a while to get the translation of that. Actually, that's a good compliment.
Yes, that's a good. Yeah, you can translate that. That's a good compliment.
Yeah.
Curtis says, what does he say here?
Remember, never marry crazy.
Only if she's hot and can make sandwiches. No, Curtis, that's not sandwiches with an ND. It's sandwiches with a double M.
Sandwiches.
You're gonna make sandwiches. The best meme I saw lately, it showed a gay couple and they're crying on each other's shoulders, two guys. Who's gonna make us sandwiches now? Ain't that the truth? No woman in your life after intimacy, and there's no sandwiches unless you make it yourself. And what else did Curtis say? He said something here. Remember, never marry crazy. Thank you for that word of advice. And I think that can go both ways for men or women. Never marry crazy. Wendy, you've had crazy before, haven't you?
Sadly, yes, I have, and I think we all have probably in our life. We probably all met and been with someone who's crazy, and it depends on the person's level of crazy. Like what some people think is crazy, some people don't.
Right.
But obviously, it depends on behaviour and stuff like that. But sadly,
behavior.
I did have my share of some crazy times, and I won't be going there.
Yeah, there's the whole gorgeous to crazy factor that works in too.
Well, I think people are very, when you meet someone, and he's put like, remember, never marry crazy. I actually think that, you shouldn't marry anyone unless, look, every relationship in life is a gamble. It either works or it doesn't. You get out what you put in, what you invest. I think of a relationship like a bank. So if you invest time and attention and etc., you'll get that back. And so by the time you even get round to thinking about whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, marrying someone, you should know them pretty well. So
you should.
Going crazy on you, you're like, excuse me. So, but everyone has the ability to go crazy.
Many times, maybe this is a topic of for a different time, but aren't there times many of us overlook crazy? We overlook the red flags. We go, I'm in love with this person. Yeah. I'm intimate with this person. Therefore, I can overlook the crazy. And a guy might say, I can overlook the crazy chick because she's hot. And the woman might say, I can overlook the assholery of this man because I love him and I'm intimate with him.
Ain't that the truth?
And we all overlook the things that, and of course, there's all different kinds of categories of that. You can be intimate with someone, But what is real intimacy, and what can you discover things about your partner that you're intimate with? This is a question we should deal with in this show. Um, can you overlook those things about your partner, even though they're not things that you would normally have drawn you to that first person, but you find out after the intimacy, after you've given yourself, after you are invested, and you go, wow, this person's crazy. Or, wow, this person is going to drive us into the ground financially. Or this person is a bad person. I didn't know, he's a serial killer. I just didn't know that, but I love him. All these things come up. So what Tracy says, she's definitely had
I think
crazy.
where feelings are concerned, when you care for someone, when there's feelings between you and someone else, you overlook some things because you love them or you care about them, and it's true. Love
Yes,
can be blind and stupid. We've all been there. But
sure.
true intimacy is when I believe you show your true self to someone, and it's not just about the sex, and it's not just about
Yeah.
the stuff like that. It's about, this is who I really am, this is what I'm
Hmm.
really feeling, and they get to see you for who you really are. Sometimes it's not a pretty sight.
Yeah,
Sometimes we actually don't like the person they show us. Because when you meet someone, let's be honest, when we meet someone, Scotty, we're always, it's always on our best. We're always trying to, we've got
sure.
fishing line out, and we're trying to pull them in and go, but I'm lovely, And then
Right, right.
as time goes on, you get to see the real person behind all that. And intimacy is a very true saying, being absolutely naked with someone, and it doesn't involve taking your clothes off. It actually
Yeah,
involves, this is how I feel about you, this is how I feel about something, and this is how I'm showing someone how you feel. And intimacy, everyone, when you talk about and intimacy is so important, from
it
holding
is.
hands to talking to the, it's the small things between you that they I always believe true intimacy is almost showing your soul to somebody. If you're in that kind of relationship, other people may see intimacy as a kind of and it comes across many different layers. You and I have had probably enough relationships between us in our years that we should be able to write a book about it. You know what you like, you know what
Right.
you don't like, you know what you want, you know what you don't want. I don't think anyone should settle for second best. I don't think anyone and if you don't, using this example, I know people that have been together a long time and there's no intimacy between them anymore. There's no sex. There's no intimacy. And sex is just off the table now. But the problem is, what happens if one of you still wants the sex, right?
Right.
Can they? I think they can hear us, babe, because they're listening.
Some people are saying they lost the feed.
Really? It says live.
It says we're live and we're talking.
Yeah, I can see you. And I can, and Sandra says she
Okay.
can hear us.
Tracy says she can see us, or Sandra says she can see us. It cut out briefly.
Good job they didn't hear what we said,
It's
though.
internet stuff.
Good job they didn't hear what we
But y'all
said.
can hear us now, right? Raise your hand if you can hear us. So, all right, keep going. Sorry to interrupt you, Wendy. I
That's
was
all
trying to do
right.
that without interrupting your
Really lost my
flow.
train of thought. But Scotty, when you meet someone and you first meet them, it's all up in the clouds. It should be like that. People talk about the honeymoon
Hmm.
period. Well, they say, well, the honeymoon period should be all the way through the relationship. No, actually, yeah, it's true, but it also should be in the beginning, because you're getting to know each other. You're learning what one person likes, what the other person likes. And it's about building a connection, an intimate connection, because I stand by what I say. If you are not intimate with each other, you are not lovers. You are
Right.
friends. You are not lovers. And there is a different kind of intimacy that comes after you have been intimate with someone. Do you not agree?
I agree. And I have been in situations where I've said, I'm not in this to be your friend.
Mhm.
Um, And what I mean by that is, I'm not here to be a roommate. I'm not here to be, the fuck buddy. Pardon my French. Together and yeah, yes, and it's something we all do. We all enjoy. Maybe some of us don't enjoy it as much as others do. Maybe there's points in our lives where our bodies don't work the same and it's not as enjoyable.
Yeah.
Or maybe there's even times in our life where our bodies aren't what they used to be, meaning we don't have the six pack anymore. We don't have, or our butts are bigger. Or can we do this with the lights off so we don't see? No, I like to see, I like to see body parts. Maybe you plug yourself in there wherever you want to be, but that shouldn't steal intimacy. That steals away sexuality, maybe.
They are
But
very different.
sexuality with intimacy is what we're talking about, because the intimacy, we can separate that out from sexuality and just talk about intimacy. What makes intimacy work? And she's saying, Tracy's saying the sound keeps glitching.
And
I'm
it's
not
weird
sure what
because
that's about,
from
guys.
our point of view, we can absolutely hear each other perfectly.
Yes,
So
we can.
we don't hear anything like that at all. That's
So,
interesting.
yeah, we're not catching it on our end. And I'm not seeing any glitchiness on my equipment. So we'll just keep going.
But I agree with you, because it's like I want to be, so many people, I want to be intimate with someone. I want, intimate is taste, touch, feel, sense, smell, hear. It's all the senses. It's every single sense. You can, and even if you were to use a blindfold and you got to learn your body, your partner's body, by touch, by smell, it's very intimate. Intimacy is the connection between two people, and everything they share in between that. But it's that personal time. But as my friend would say, and I did ask my friend for her opinion on intimacy, and she said, "Look, Wendy, what us women want in intimacy, we want to feel desired and wanted and lusted and longed for and all that malarkey. We want that too. But we also want someone to just give it to us. We all want someone to just give it to us hard and make us feel like, oh my God.
Right.
Mood for me, right? And different people see intimacy as different things. But I asked a lot of people, I've sent out a lot through questions to people. What do you think is intimate? And she was like, I think you and Scotty are great, but you're very tactful. And she said, you just need to say sometimes, you just need to give it. You just need to give it. And I'm like, I'm going to tell them that. So I have, I've said it, but it's also being your true, authentic self with someone. Do you not agree?
Yeah. Authentic. Now, let's camp on that for a second, because you and I both know couples that are authentically not intimate with each other, and they're authentic about it. They let their partner know, I don't want this. They don't want to end the relationship either. They're comfortable in the relationship. They don't want to change things up, but their intimacy level is as long as a hug in the morning or a kiss on the cheek goodnight. And as they go off to their own bedroom. That's the way some people are. And intimacy, to me, I don't think differs from what the definitions of intimacy are. To me, it's something that it's encompassing everything you do. It doesn't mean you're attached at the hip and you're not independent people with your own independent lives and do things, but it's and this is a totally other topic as well. Independence within relationships. A man and a woman can be independent from each other, but they're independent in a dependent way on each other. When your intimacy works, you are close in everything you do. Do you have sex 3 times a day or even 3 times a week? Maybe not after a certain number of years. That changes. Things change, needs change.
Can you bring up that comment from JP, please? Because I just want to.
Oh, yes. I wasn't even looking. The last one here?
Yeah.
Tough to give it to them hard when they do things that make you feel worthless. Isn't that the truth?
If you're in a relationship with someone that makes
I agree with that.
You have to get out. because as best as you can get out, because at the end of the day, life is too short, and there's always someone out there that will actually appreciate what they don't. And I think that you give so many allowances to people, you give them so many chances and so many occasions, but if they're still making you feel worthless, you should find your way out, because life is too short to feel that.
And, I have to agree with that, because what are you doing? There are some people that stay together for their kids.
Yeah.
And as soon as the kids are gone, what's the glue they have anymore?
But no one should feel worthless. Nobody
yeah.
should make anyone feel worthless.
And Jason, JP, is right. It's really hard to be intimate with somebody, be sexual with somebody,
Absolutely.
when they maybe are the ones that make you feel the most worthless.
Yes.
Or the ones that are always criticizing you. Now, you can criticize each other and still be intimate, but criticizing takes on a different role.
Yes.
If I'm in love with somebody, or they're in love with me, or you, or anybody out there, critical, you can even, you have to pull it out of the critical camp, because critical to me has a very negative connotation. You can be constructively critical, but you don't criticize. You certainly don't criticize in front of other people. That's something I've seen couples do. And it's incredibly damaging.
It's awful. Why would you criticize somebody that you once thought was so wonderful? If you really have such a low opinion about them, leave them alone, because you know what? Someone else will love them. Someone else will want them. And, I always say you're that close to someone else coming in and taking what you want. If you don't take care of it, if you don't look after it, if you don't invest in it. And what happens is, what Tracy's actually saying there is a very good point. If you carry on feeling worthless when you do meet someone good, when you do meet someone amazing who actually tries to, show you all that, you don't know how to cope with it. You don't know what to do with it, because you're so used to be treated like crap all the time. It's like, hang on a minute, what's wrong with you? Where's the other shoe going to drop? When is this actually going to happen? I've stayed in relationships far too long, given far too many chances, and been far too lenient and tolerant. And where's it got me?
Yeah.
Where does it get us in the end?
Nowhere.
And why do we do it?
What is I thought Tracy may have just answered. It takes a best friend to encourage you to move on. Thanks, Wendy, she said.
I love you.
And what does JP says? He says, the angry at each other sex.
It can be good.
Yeah, it can be good. Mm-hmm. There is then there are those who are fooled into believing that the other person is having sex with them because they love them and are being intimate. Mm-hmm. And that might not be the case. What do you do in relationships where one person doesn't define sexual activity as intimate, but the absence of it says we're lacking intimacy?
Yeah.
What about those types of people? Because I know people like that, where it's like, look, somebody might say to me, I understand that sex and intimacy are different things. You don't need to be intimate to have sex. But when both are absent, how do you handle that? What do you do about that? Mm-hmm. How do you figure that one out? When there are other people involved by way of children or all the things you have together. What did Steph just say? You get all this stuff. She said the people stay together so they don't want to lose everything they've worked so hard for. And but someone is always going without.
And also that doesn't breed well in the home. I know people that are in this situation right now, and the children are aware of it. They are aware of the relationship between their parents or whatever, because they don't see intimacy. I never saw my parents ever hold hands. I never saw my parents be sweet to each other. I never saw my parents cuddle and kiss each other. I grew up in a background where I never saw intimacy with my parents. I didn't know what it was. My dad and mum were not the best relationship. It was years until I saw my mum with my stepdad that I actually saw the connection between them. And you know what? You can make love to someone's mind before you make love to someone's body. And I've always
Yeah.
said, before you get in my bed, you've got to get in my head, because you've got to have, for me, not some people can. Some people can just jump into bed and it's like, it's physical. But intimacy is when you're in someone's mind and they are, that you bring everything to the table. It's a big connection. I know when you're in a room with someone, you're at a party, you're at a party or a restaurant or a theatre, and they look across the room at you, and there's just a look between the two of you,
Mm-hmm.
and you know exactly what they're thinking because
Yeah.
you're that close, you're that intimate with each other. And if you've never experienced anything like that, if you've never had a relationship like that, that's a shame, because those kind of connections are powerful.
Yes, they are. I see so many things that people are saying, but I wanted to make this point too: is that sex is something that you can have by yourself. You can have it with another person. And so it doesn't always involve intimacy, as we've already established. And with a partner, it can include, let's just be clinical, sexual intercourse or not. And so, simply put, it's bodily pleasure, usually with the aim of orgasm. And we all like to do that, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And when we don't get the orgasm, we're like, oh, that was still fun, but man, I'd sure like to, yeah,
There's
boom.
something missing. Yeah.
And so intimacy, on the other hand, is much harder to achieve than simply rubbing body parts together. It involves letting yourself be known. And I'm sorry, I'm going to use a fetch word within psychobabble and psychotherapy, the vulnerability of being known. It's your hopes, your desires, your fears, your foibles, and you have to know and accept another person inside and out. And it's defined. You can define the intimacy as, there's a coined phrase, into me see, into dash me dash see. And when satisfying sex and the closeness of intimacy are combined and they're working together in your relationship, it can be enormously satisfying. Because you know what? Stuff might not work. The body might not be in as great a shape as you'd like it to be. The lights might be on or off, but none of that matters because of the intimacy that's between the people. And, if my wife was dissatisfied with her body, she might say, "Oh, I'm not gonna," but intimacy doesn't care, because you are intimate with each other.
Absolutely.
You know each other. That doesn't mean you don't go, "I don't look good anymore, do I?" And you go, "Nah, you look great."
It's
There are things we get around. It's because I love you. I care about you. But then they're like, "Well, you're only saying that because you love me. I really don't look good, do I?" No, you look great. And I would tell you if you didn't. Why? Because I love you and I'm intimate. But that's what,
it's connection, isn't it? Whatever you
yeah.
do, excuse me, whatever you do, it's like, when you just stare at each other, and you can express how you feel without even touching each other, and you feel the energy between you. You feel that energy sizzling, or you feel the strength of that energy. I think people don't bother. What happens is they put all the effort into getting to know someone. Then once they get to know them, they're like, "Well, I got you now. I don't need to keep you. I don't need to work."
I don't need to work so hard
Yes, you
now.
do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do need to work on it,
You do.
actually, and you have to do it every day, because if you don't, someone else comes along and can take it. I know people that have not had sex in their relationship for a long period of time. One of them really, really wanted it. One of them really, really didn't. What do you think is going to happen in that scenario? Unless they can meet in the middle, and one could say, "Well, why don't you go out and get it elsewhere, right? And then just come home to me," which I think that would work for some people.
I've heard people say that.
It wouldn't work for me, but it works for some people. I know, but if you don't want to have sex anymore, ask yourself why you don't want to have sex anymore.
Yeah.
Why don't you want to have sex anymore? Why don't you want to be intimate with this person anymore? Why don't you want to do that? Because it's true. If you're not getting what you want from your partner, whether it's connection, whether it's chemistry, whether it's sex, you eventually will leave and go and look for it elsewhere. That's a fact.
Yeah, maybe so. That was gonna be my next question was, is a lack of intimacy something where that can open up the door for lack of sex? Not necessarily. A lack of sexual activity can have many reasons behind it.
Of course.
One can be intimacy, a lack of intimacy. The other can be physical or health problems. There are people that don't have sex that are madly intimate with each other. They just don't have sex anymore or haven't for a long time, long periods of time because of certain reasons. So lack of sex isn't always a deal breaker or a killer of relationships, but lack of intimacy
Yes.
is, because especially when you combine the two. What do you have? I wanted to ask you this. Did we do a show on this once before? Or did I talk about it on my show a very long time ago? And that is emotional blackmail, where one partner in the relationship will be, you can have sex as soon as you're making 80,000 a year or 100,000 a year or whatever. Then I'll do that. Or, how come you always want sex when you can't pay the bills on time? And plug in anything you want. I'm taking very standard things that couples tend to argue about. But the emotional blackmail is one. I want things to be the way I want them in this relationship. Otherwise, I'm not going to give you intimacy. But the big question you have to ask then, if you actually achieve that goal, will you get the intimacy you were looking for? Or will there be another thing put on the list? The bullet pointed list keeps growing longer.
If you have to blackmail, if someone has to say things to you and offer blackmail, emotional manipulation,
Yes.
blackmail, then I have to ask myself about that situation. I have in my marriage, I married in good faith, thinking that I was marrying somebody who was completely into me and wanted to have sex
Shared
with me,
your interests, wanted to be with you.
relationship.
Right.
That wasn't what I got. And I think that had they been truthful and said, this is what I am, this is what you're getting, I would have been able to have that choice. Instead, I ended up giving 6 years of my life to a situation where I felt unwanted and unattractive, but I was married. I was loyal. I wasn't going to leave my husband. I wasn't going to give up on my marriage. But at the same time, he lied. And I didn't see that. I just didn't see that. And I think that it was never what happens when sex is not important to someone, but it's important to someone else, and you're in that relationship, you have that conversation like it was, and I think JP and I had this conversation the other day. Sometimes if you're not feeling up to sex, it's not all about sex, don't get me wrong. It's I can cuddle up towards someone and watch TV and eat pizza in bed and share great intimacy with them, and just for I rarely fall asleep on anyone, but I have fallen asleep on someone, and that shows great trust and intimacy.
You mean physically, like head on somebody's chest and you fall asleep?
I have never fallen asleep because I find it very, very hard to do. But I actually have fallen asleep, and it was probably I felt very safe. A trusted, and it just felt great. And I didn't even know I was doing it. That's obviously the greatest thing about it. That is intimacy, even without sex. But you have to keep building on it, because you can't let things lie. And, couples do. They've got kids, bills come in. Oh, I'm so tired all the time. You've got the kids, they're screaming. We've got to pay the bill. What happens is the intimacy gets forgotten. and you
Mhm.
have to work at it. You have to work it and go,
Yes.
look, I haven't seen you. Let's go and have a date night. Let's have a meal together. Let's share a bath. Let's share a shower. You have to keep working at it.
Yeah. Um, by the way, Curtis said it complicates relationships when there's a body image problem.
Absolutely.
Let me address that for a second. Now, this is perhaps a bit idyllic. Um, perhaps I don't think it's too naive, but most people with body problems have spouses or partners that also have their own body problems. It's
Yes.
not usually you got a guy with a six pack and a wife who's way out of whack physically,
Yeah.
or converse. Although there there are many times where a woman looks great all the time, but her husband, he conquered, he married her, they had kids. He's the one that gets fat and out of shape and boring and whatever, and he's the one that maybe is the one that's physically out of shape. But here, I'm going to offer a solution. Why can't you go to the other person? Now, my wife. My wife's unbelievably sexy, gorgeous woman. She put on a few pounds. And by that, people use that few pounds as a cover up for her. She only put on 120 pounds. No, she's up a few pounds. And it's uncomfortable for her. She still fits in her clothes and all that, but she doesn't look. And she's had 3 kids and she's in her early 40s. And but to me, it's not a problem. I say, look at me. I say I put on weight too. I'm flabby in areas. So how about we do this rather than just acknowledge that, hey, neither of us really would look good standing naked in front of people. Like or this one's for Jason. I couldn't put on a pair of Speedos and stand there and go, hey, don't I look good? Like Jason can. Because I can't. And so what do you do? What's the solution to that? When you're intimate, why don't you say to each other, hey, let's go exercise together? And the wife will say usually something like,
Good
yeah,
point,
I
Jeff.
know what kind of exercise you want to do. And it's like, no, seriously. Why don't we do something together? Why don't we work on our diet together? Why don't we work on the way we eat or the times that we have to go do stuff? I know in my relationship, we are both so busy all the time. And it's busy with stupid busy stuff all the time that there's never time to go out for a walk
Yeah.
or do that. And so, but you got to make the time, you got to build it into your schedule. So, why don't couples that are experiencing that problem? I look at Doug Stack, Grumpy Stack. He lost what? Over 200 pounds, 250 pounds, something like that.
Sex is great cardio, Curtis. Absolutely, it is.
Yes, it is. It can be great cardio. I sweat
And
all the time.
Steph's put it, good point. Men that get totally out of shape but don't make them want sex less. What makes someone not want sex? And let's look at all the reasons for that. Well, first of all, there's like hormonal issues, right? If there's
Yeah.
hormonal issues, medication, menopause, low testosterone levels. There's also like if you've had a bad experience, you're in your own head. There's things that have happened to you. All these things, you don't find your partner attractive anymore. You don't want to get with them anymore. They don't. You don't fancy them. If you don't fancy your partner, you should let them go. I'm going to be completely blunt by that.
I would agree with that. If you don't like your partner and you're never gonna, and it's never gonna get better,
Let them go.
what are you doing in that relationship?
Not fair to that person. If you don't find them physically attractive and you have no intention of showing them either verbally, physically, or sexually, whatever, then you should let them go because it's being selfish.
Yeah.
Life is
Now,
so short, too
of
short.
course, we have other obligations that sometimes keep us in relationships, right?
Children,
I've heard the justification, children, but children know
no,
when their parents don't like
but
each
people
other.
stay for that reason.
And people stay for that. What are you really supposed to do? We seem to have this moral code that says you stay in that for the sake of the kids. But then what happens when the kids
Yeah.
graduate from high school and they go off to college? Parents split up. Boom. So what have you laid on your kids when they're out of the house? Well, my parents are no longer together. Now, some kids can handle that. Some kids can't. Some kids, they say, one thing I will say about divorce between parents that have kids at home is I once read a book when I was deep in this. I was in ministry, dealing with guys in broken relationships. And I had read this book. It was called I'm trying to think of the exact title, The Unexpected Consequence of Divorce. And it was geared at kids. And it made a statement from some of the studies that were done at Johns Hopkins University, mental health studies. It says children of divorce never fully recover
It's
their
true.
whole lives. So I used to think when I'm getting a divorce, I'm bequeathing to my children a brokenness that will always be there. And that's something that they will never get over. And some people will say, well, what's worse, having that and you deal with it, or teaching them that you can stay in ugly relationships for their whole life? And yes, those are all valid points. But I remember when I was divorcing the mom of my 3 older children. And it came down to, after being threatened and being served several times, and we fixed it, and all kinds of idiocy going on, I said, that's it, I'm done. And I filed the paperwork finally. And I remember that day she checked herself into alcohol treatment. She was gone from our house for 6 months. And but I was with my kids, and I remember telling my twin daughters, who are now 32, when they were 7, I was 7 or 8, I was telling them about this, and they were just disaster stricken. And I said, this is not something I ever meant to do to you, but there's a problem here. So parents sometimes have to go to that place,
Yes.
that ugly, dark place. And I think what we have forgotten, and this is pertinent to our topic of intimacy, I believe, is that parents have forgotten, and I will always believe this and emphasize it, they have forgotten what divorce does to their children when they have kids that are in the mix.
Well, I'm a child from a divorce. My
Yeah,
parents
me
divorced.
too.
I was 7 when my dad was unfaithful a lot in my parents' marriage, and I was very much aware of what was going on. And I never wanted to marry my dad. I never wanted to marry a man like my dad. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I didn't. I didn't.
Right.
And I'm glad my parents split up, because it was miserable. The atmosphere was miserable. There was no affection, no attention. No matter how many times you try and hide it from your children,
Yeah.
children know what's going on. They
Can't
really,
hide it.
really do. And they're like, God, and I grew up warped from my parents' marriage. I just said I never saw any intimacy between my parents ever. All I saw was distance and matter of fact, and it was horrible. So I think sometimes that, yes, it does damage us, because yes, we do come out of it and go, but we also, not all of us, but some of us, all of us look at it and go, my parents are better apart and happier apart than they were together, because the children then grow up in 2 happy environments rather than just one miserable one. Because like if I was married and I had children and my marriage was failing, I would want my children to see a happy, grounded
Yes.
relationship where mum and dad were affectionate and attentive with each other. So they grew up with an idea of what a relationship should or should not be. I
Yes.
wouldn't want them growing up saying, oh, my mum and dad weren't like that.
My older daughters, by the way, now at age 32, and they told this to me the first time, maybe 10 years ago, 22 years old, out on their own for a couple of years. They said, Dad, we could never imagine you and Mom ever being a couple. That's
Yeah.
just the farthest thing from us ever being able to reconcile those two things. And I said, it's probably a good thought to have. Now, did they have a difficult time with the divorce? Yes.
Of course.
But you know what I did? As everybody knows, most people here know, I was given sole custody of my 3 kids, my 2 daughters, my twin daughters, and my son. and they lived with me, and I raised them, and I raised them to be a certain way. And I always said rather jokingly, I'm raising my children to keep them out of therapy when they're in their 30s. And also, I'm raising my children to want me around when they're adults.
You did a good job.
And well, thank you. And they're great kids. And you all know Sam. Most of you watch my show.
I do think that parents lose out a lot on, because not only are they parents, they're also human beings themselves. And it's like there is a time to, you're always going to be a parent. You're never going to stop being a parent. You'll be a parent until the day you die, etc.
Yep.
You're always going to be a parent, but you're also a human being yourself. You're also a man or a woman yourself. And you've got needs and wants as well, just like everybody else has. And
Yes.
really, like, I'm going to ask you, do you think that you've the man in you, that's the Scotty, the man, has been forgotten along the way, and in your life, in your relationships, in your with the kids, you don't have that role anymore of that man.
I don't have. I'm not sure if I caught your point.
What I'm trying to say is, when you become a dad and a husband, you have all these
Mhm.
different roles, and you're
Oh yeah.
juggling different hats: dad, chauffeur,
Mhm.
chef,
Mhm.
and as mums do as well. But what about the person underneath that? What about
Oh
Scotty?
yeah.
You're still Scotty. You've still got needs and wants and desires, have you
Yeah.
not?
Oh well, sure I do, and we all do. My wife does. You do. I do. We all have our personal needs. Everybody in this chat room today and listening to the show, we all have our personal needs and
But
wants.
sometimes they get
They
forgotten.
get. I think that is a. I was going to say battle cry, but that's not how I meant that to come out. That is a woeful cry of most women in married relationships. She's forgotten who she is. She's mom,
Yeah.
dad's off working, trying to make a living, trying to make things work financially.
Yep.
Even if he can't, he's struggling to make things work financially. Wife is usually the one, you know what? I don't care. I'm not woke here. I don't care about gender bullshit and all of that. But I got to tell you something. A woman makes a better mom than a man, and a man makes a better dad than a woman. There, I've said it. Controversial as that is, uh, uh, change my mind.
You
So
both have
uh,
different roles. You both have
they're
different roles.
different roles,
We learn
but
about men from our father. As women,
right,
we learn about men. And you don't realize, like, my dad showed me exactly what kind of man I did not want to be with. And God happened, I dated him, not just
yeah.
once, but twice or three
Well,
times.
my point I was going for is that women will be the ones who usually are the ones raising the kids,
Mhm.
nurturing the kids. It's not that dad doesn't go, "Hey, son, let's go get the mitts and the softball and throw a ball out in the backyard," once a week. Or, dads are there. I'm not trying to belittle what dads do, but dads are usually the ones that are compartmentalized away from the nurturing because they're trying to be
Yeah.
men of action to get things done for the family. And if they fail at that, oh, woe is him, even the worse. But the woman is the one who is constantly doing for the kids, constantly cooking, constantly being the taxi cab, even though dads do that too. I do that a lot around here and I get sick of it. I got to tell you, yesterday I told the kid no about something and I said no, because that'll be half my day spent running kids places. I got other things to do. So no, I can't do that. And it's not usually a mean no. It's a like no, and the kid will go, "Well, why not? You took so and so." I go, "It's irrelevant." I said, "I don't have not all my hours for that." But my point being, women will feel drained by that. Women will be the one that look to, I had things I wanted to accomplish in life too, not just pop out 3 kids and breastfeed and be a mom that runs kids to things. I had goals too, and I haven't achieved any of them because I've taken 15 years of my life out to be a mom.
But I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to
Yes.
say intimacy. Would you say intimacy is important to you and you have it, as in essential, sensual, sexual
Mhm.
intimacy? And is it more important to you now Or was it always important to you?
I don't think it's more important now. I think it's just as important as it ever was. I mean, I liked sex when I was 19. Does that mean at 63 I don't like sex anymore? No, I think I like it even more because it's more evasive these days.
Yeah.
When I was 19 to 30, you could get it almost anywhere you turned your head. When I'm 63 and married and in a relationship with kids, getting sex is sometimes harder to come by because wife is sick or tired and just constantly worn out, constantly pulled in all the directions.
And if you
I,
could,
I mean,
if
couples have that all the time.
if you in I'm trying not to say this with you and Rainy, but it's like if you're in a
Sure.
situation where the intimacy has been challenged from not having time, you're exhausted, the kids are there, you don't get much privacy to yourself. It's what
Wait. What's that word?
privacy.
I don't know what that means
When
on a
if you
practical level.
how do you still be intimate? Because if you're not having any of that stuff, how do you get to be intimate?
Well, see, now are you asking how does the mind go there? Because like with my wife, now this gets down to the basic differences between the physiology between men and women. Men compartmentalize, women don't. It's kind of like, and this is an overgeneralization, but it is a fact that that's why I've said men are like puddles and women are like rivers.
Mm.
We can jump from puddle to puddle to puddle, never the two edges meet. No matter what puddle you're in. Women, it all rolls together in one river, one stream. So it all depends on that because a woman will be somebody who will, after a rough day, um, running around back and forth, doing all this stuff, taking care of this. For me, let's add in tending to clients, doing the client work, juggling the bills, doing this and that, running here, running there. At the end of the day, you know what would be nice? A nice shag up against the dresser or something, or up on top of the,
Amen.
you know, let's do it. For my wife can tend to be the other way though. If she has all those things she has to do, and then she's got to deal with the drama at the little place where she works, it's like she doesn't need to work there, by the way. I said, if you don't want to be there, just quit. It's not minimum wage, but it's a waged job at a dollar store locally here. And there's drama like you wouldn't believe. And I said, you know what? You can walk away from that anytime you want. And she said, yeah, I could. But she invests in that drama. She's not a gossiper, but there's drama that goes on and she has to deal with it. And so she comes home after all of this stuff I just mentioned. Does she wanna get naked and jump on top of me or vice versa? No, that's the farthest thing from her mind. She wants a warm bath and candles lit and then to go to sleep. She doesn't want shagging anywhere in the middle of that.
But that's
And
where
so
like date nights, you have to
yeah, date night is
time.
harder to come by, but
It is, but it's like a date night. Let's go away. Because how do
Yep.
you rebuild intimacy if you don't spend one-to-one time with each other? How do you build up? Because we're looking at intimacy. What is intimacy? What is intimacy? It's a connection
Mhm.
between two people of
It's
the mind,
connectivity.
of the body, and the soul, if you want to go there as well. It's a connection. If you are burnt out, wiped out, you've got nothing to give. If you don't give anything, you're not going to get much back because you've got a giver and a
Right.
taker, a giver and a receiver. So
There are also, by the way, with men and women,
yeah,
men have sex as a release, women have sex as fulfillment.
but it's a
Those are
release
two
for women.
totally opposite things.
But it's a release for women too. Let me tell you.
It can be, yes.
You're frustrated, you're pent up, you've had a bad week, and you're like, well, I really needed that. Thank you.
Sure.
And it's also a way of feeling wanted by your partner.
Yes.
Because I'm not being funny, but
Hmm.
just French, if you French kiss someone, it's really intimate. And I'm going to list a few things here. Like when you kiss someone, mwah, that's lovely, but it's not deep. It's not that deep connection. When you
Yep.
have a quick naughty kiss or a French kiss, whatever you want to call it, there is a connection there that grows. It's intimate. When you hold
Yes.
hands, when you put your arms around someone, when you feel the heat from their body, it's an intimacy. When you see them naked walking across the room and you're like, oh my God, I want to be
Mm-hmm.
intimate with you, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
it's that energy, it's that connection. Otherwise, if you don't fancy them, you don't care if they walk across in front of you naked.
Yeah.
I mean, Steph's talking,
Yes.
she's got my man toy and brings the cocktail and a snack. I mean, the woman, she's a woman after my own heart. I mean, seriously, good for you, Steph.
I will tell you, when my household, we are either lax on the rules or our kids just don't give a flying rat's bahookie what the rules are, because mom will be in the bath soaking in a little, fragranced bath stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and I could walk in with a cocktail, and she doesn't drink as much anymore these days, but I could walk in with her favorite beverage and light that candle, and while she's soaking in the tub, that might start to spin her mood around, like Steph is talking about. But then a kid barges in. Hey, mom, and it's like, hey, I don't know how many times I've said to them, hey, did you knock?
Yeah.
Well, you're in here. I can be in here too. No, no, you can't. Really. I don't need to explain that to you. You need to leave the room.
You've got to
Uh,
have boundaries in that scenario. But also with the two of you, I don't think that if in my marriage, I tried so hard to bring the intimacy back, so hard. I tried the underwear, I tried the lingerie, I tried the baths, I tried, let's do this, let's try this. And it's like, what if someone is just not sexual and you're with someone who just isn't sexually charged in that way? What do you do?
well, here's the question, too. Were they sexually charged when you started the relationship, but they're not now? Um, what can you figure out? Can you think, well, what brought that on? Why is that way now? Is it me, or is it all the other trappings of life
Mhm.
that have worked together to steal this? Um, and that, like, my wife will say sometimes to me, sex, she goes, it's too much work.
It can
and
feel
and
like
of course, being the loving, intimate man that I am, I'll say, you can just lay there. You
but
don't
it's
have to do a
true.
thing.
Like it is
Um,
sometimes it is hard work. If
yes,
what if you're tired? What if you're worn out? What if you're not well?
I just took a
And
bath.
you just
You'll make me dirty.
you don't want to. You come in, you're like, the last thing I think about is getting hot and dirty and sweaty, right? Whereas other people, yeah, some they see it become a chore. Where other people are like, it'll be the pep up, I think you've got to sing from the same hymn page. You might not with everything, but you've got to have that jointness. I mean,
Yes.
if your wife was to pinch your ass, if she was to snog your face off, that would be intimacy.
Snog my face off.
Sorry, that's an English term.
Snog. Snog is
Smooch.
oh, smooch. Okay. I
Smooch.
thought that's where that was going. I want to make
Snog is
sure
English. I'm so
I was
sorry.
following you.
Yeah. Then that would be intimate, would it
Yes,
not?
it would be.
And if you were together and you had a chance to sit down with a cup of tea and just talk to each other and have a closeness, that
Mhm.
is intimacy, is it not?
Mhm. Mhm.
And
That
if
is
you've got a
intimacy.
chance to be with each other in the physical sense
Mhm.
and relearn everything again, because you still have to learn. Everyone thinks, well, I know them, I know what you like. No, you don't. Everyone's evolving, everyone's changing. What you
Yeah.
like 25 you may not like now at your point of view, and the same as Rainey. But you've got to fancy your partner, and I'll say this again, I'm sorry, people might disagree with me, you have to fancy the fuck out of your partner, because
Yeah.
if you don't, there will not be sex and there will not be intimacy.
Yeah.
Why would you want to have sex with somebody that you don't fancy?
Well, there it is in a nutshell. If you don't like that person, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
Now, um, there was a point I wanted to make about this too, that um, when it comes to the intimacy with the other person, um, and there's not time for it. Okay, I'll give you an example. This is a surrogate for intimacy. Maybe not an accepted surrogate, but a replacement, at least for a moment. There have been a couple of times where I have said to Rainey, "Hey, hey, look, um, we can go put the kids to bed and let's go
No.
downstairs and lock the door." And she, it's like, "Nah, I'm just too tired. I mean, And I grumble or I slump my shoulders. I do a lot of that. I do that, just for fun. And um, but the next morning she'll say, "I almost woke you up in the middle of the night." I said, "Oh, why? Do tell." And she said, "Well, we were in this weird place doing this weird thing with all this weird stuff, and we got naked and we were just going at it." And she says, "And then I woke up and you were sound asleep, so I didn't wake you up." I'm like, wake me up.
up. Wake me up.
I'm okay with that. And I said, and the next question I asked, I said, "Was it me in the dream? I know how dreams work. You're not cheating on me if you tell me it was somebody else." She goes, "No, it was you. Just last week that happened." I'm like, "Okay,
And isn't it
wake me up."
isn't it a compliment as well to know that your
Yes.
other half, your partner, still finds you as attractive as you did? Because otherwise we can feel rejection. I mean, when I
Yeah.
did Wicked Women some weeks ago now on sexjection, I should say, it's about
Rejection.
being rejected for sex. And it's if you don't want sex, if you can't have sex, if there's a reason, it's you, as Jason said, and I don't know if I can pull it as elegantly as Jason said. If you can't do it, there's still ways around to be intimate.
Yes, there are. Intimacy, like we said, and we've established early on, intimacy doesn't require sex. Uh, Good sex involves intimacy. It doesn't have to have intimacy. Sex can be fantastic without being intimate. Um, you ever had sex with somebody you don't know very well and it's really, really good? Yeah, I've been there. But for the long term, that didn't work so much. What's Jeremy Hansen have to say? Men only need to make their women feel desired and pay attention to her to get the prescribed result.
Well, let's put it
Yes.
this way. If and I'm being very blunt because I've asked a lot of women this weekend about this topic, and they've all said, as men have as well, and we need to be completely honest here, not every situation, not every person, not every relationship. If people don't feel wanted or desired or intimate with their partner, they will go elsewhere. And
Yes.
they will look for it elsewhere. They may not look
You
for
know
the
what?
sex, but they will
Let
look for the
me
intimacy.
let me amend that point a little bit. You may have very good people that won't go out and look for it somewhere else. And I'm not saying using this as an excuse, but when the intimacy is lacking and it spills over into the sexual category, you got to be a really, really stalwart person to not have what comes naturally start to pull your head in a different direction.
Yes.
Um, and it's not because you are a philanderer or you are, which usually gets plugged on men. It's not that you are out there looking for that. But what would happen? Let's use a man as an example. I want input from the audience in the chat room. What would happen to a man in a relationship where the sex switch has been turned off by his partner and the intimacy is really hard to come by? And this drags on, not just weeks or months, but maybe even years. I'm not talking ungodly amount of years, but say that drags on for 2 or 3 years. Now, You might say 2 or 3 years is a long time to go without sex. Well, compared to 20, it's not. It's a bad start though to get to 20. So let's say that happens. Is that leaving that guy? You could flip it around and say it's a woman that's not getting that. But would that leave that guy susceptible to wanting to be intimate with somebody else? And not just intimate, but sexual with somebody else?
I think you're definitely going to have men out there that aren't like that actually will not go down there and sacrifice that side of their life for whatever reason. You will have men like out there, or who remain loyal to someone who doesn't want to be that intimate with them, which I actually think is a terrible waste.
It is.
Or you will have someone, and I don't blame, I can honestly say I don't blame. I know many couples that come to mind right now that have had sexless intimacy's gone, and they're together and they go, I feel worthless. I don't feel desired by my partner. I don't feel wanted. I feel rejected. I have let go of myself and the way I look because my partner doesn't care about me anymore. You know, and then they might talk to someone and someone makes them feel alive again. Someone looks at them and makes them feel wanted and desired and attracted. And they go, I still am.
Here's what I'm saying. It's not looking, wow, I really want to do that woman. It's one of, that is a person for a guy sometimes, and for women too. Somebody of the opposite sex that suddenly they find they know this person intimately. And what if that opportunity arises? And they're so drawn into needing that intimacy that they seek it somewhere else and they get it. What does that do to a relationship?
And you have to ask the partner that has withdrawn. I'm not talking if there's an ill health problem, right? I'm not talking if there's, you know, an issue that needs to be sorted. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about if you have withdrawn from having intimacy and sexual relations because you don't want them, you don't find them attractive anymore, or whatever. Can you really blame someone? My dad had 9 affairs in 19 years of marriage.
The busy man.
My mum never stopped off, you know, there was never that option, right? But he was just that way inclined. One wasn't enough. A whole army wouldn't have been enough. God bless him. That's who he was at that time. My mom was different. She never did, and she stayed in that marriage and was you know, faithful. Where did it go? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. And I think that, you know, you've got to be careful that men just don't go and get it elsewhere and then come back and go, well, why would I want to split up this really good relationship if I can get the sex and intimacy elsewhere? You've got to sit down and say to your partner, this isn't working. I'm not getting what I want. And it's not because of what I want. It's about what we want. We're a couple in this, right?
Yep.
It's not you, Scotty, and it's not Rainey, and it's not me, and it's not, you know, Laura at the time.
Oh, by the way, in case somebody wonders, not talking about me here.
No, we're using this in general. Like if I use my ex-husband, I tried to communicate with him. This is not working. We need to do something about it. But he couldn't. He just said, and he actually had, what happens if, and I get so frustrated with this topic, what happens if it's never been important to him anyway? What happens if sex has never been important?
Yeah. Well, I didn't tell you at the beginning, but it's never been important to me. It's
and you're like,
excuse me?
Hang on a minute. We're like 6 months in now. And I love you and I care about you. That's unfair, isn't it? That's a bit selfish.
Tracy says here, you need to keep the magic alive in a relationship to keep the intimacy. Now, we can say those things, and Tracy, you just said it, but let me ask you, how would you take that a step further? What kind of ways would you find to keep the magic alive in a relationship? How do you keep the intimacy there? How do you build intimacy? We all get into our habits. We all do things. We all live in certain ways. And maybe once we've hit that brick wall, we're too tired to try something else, too worn out to be able to try to keep the magical. And now I love magic. I'm a big believer in the
Me too.
magical side of romantic and all of that. So for me, I like doing things. I love stuff like that.
Too.
I've known people, however, that have been that way, love doing the magic. And I'm not talking about casting spells. And I want my wife to be horny for me 3 times a week. Candle that I light. If there was a
Please.
candle like that, I'd be lighting that one. But what do you do when that's not a what do you do? I've known guys, more guys, because I've dealt with more guys in counseling and stuff like that in the past, but um, they've lost the desire to make the magic happen.
That's right.
And it's not that they aren't magical and haven't always been magical, but they face so much what feels like rejection that it's like, I'm not going to, I would normally buy flowers, but I'm not going to spend the money today. I would normally get a card and mail it to my wife. I don't feel like writing a love letter to her today because it's rejected. It's never appreciated, it seems.
Yeah.
Now, that works both ways. I'm just using the guy because the guy I dealt with is like that. Tracy says it's changes from the norm, the unexpected, date nights, time away without the kids, little notes left, getting dressed up for a candlelit dinner, etc. Spontaneous. Yeah.
And Rudy comes up with a good point, because what happens if I remember going through a time in my life where sex wasn't important to me. I did not want sex. I was dead from the waist down. And it was a personal choice because I've been so let down, brokenhearted, or whatever you want to say. I didn't want it anymore. I didn't care if Alexander Skarsgård had come in front of me. I'd have gone, yeah, you're gorgeous, but no, I don't want it. And I think that it's a mental attitude as well. You've got to be in the right space in your head.
Sure.
Because a lot of guys get in their head. A lot of women can get in their head. And Rudy says, how do you relight the fire when it's gone cold? And what if you have issues in the bedroom department? And does it make you less of a woman? Does it make you less of a man? No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It's about coming together as a couple and trying to talk about it and communicate about it. And then the intimacy is about what the connection is between you. I think that was what was missing in my marriage, was the connection. Because you've got to have that connection. Like, when, as I said, I used to look at him as he was a fine specimen of a man. He was a sportsman. He was 6'3". He was built well and legs like no tomorrow from being a skier. But there was no sex, and it became like friends. And I would try everything. So what do you do when you keep getting rejected? As you just said, what do you do when you keep getting rejected? You give up. Or
you dig deeper and you try.
And if that doesn't work?
Yeah. Sometimes it's just never going to redeem itself.
And some people want their cake and eat it. As Steph wrote, they'll actually go out and have sex with someone else, and not
it happens.
Even if they're having sex at home, right? They'll go out and have. It happens. People want their cake and eat it.
What happens? What about those scenarios? And I knew somebody who was in this situation. He and his wife, the perception was they loved each other, but in secret, there were problems like these of intimacy. And he went out and was in a situation, but it was a friend. He was somebody he had known for a very long time. And that happened. And it was that, I guess I'm not looking for an answer. The whole dynamic was a little different there then. Because it's not that he didn't love his wife. It's that he loved his friend, and the opening was there.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, whoa, what do you do with that? And
well, it happens. How many times do we know people that do it?
I've known many.
Oh, because it's safe, right?
Because it's safe.
And they'll keep it quiet
Right.
because they don't want to rock the boat.
It's like, this isn't some bunny boiler I met at the bar. This is somebody I know, and that knows me and knows my situation, and it's all of a sudden it's a secret friends with benefits, and it's gone. But what does doing that doesn't fix the home relationship. It fixes one person's needs.
Yes, it fixes the itch, doesn't it? It doesn't fix the cause.
Steph says she knows many. I'll bet you everybody knows somebody in those situations.
Mm.
And by the way, I'm opening it up. I put it in the chat room, Wendy. If anybody wants to call in and talk about this stuff, we've got a little bit of time left.
And I think JP should come on, because you guys were chatting about it on Sunday, and I think it would be good if he can JP.
Oh, JP, yeah.
Jason. But it's like I'm trying to get down the comments here, and where are they? Here we go.
We got somebody already. Oh, it's Jason.
Good for him.
Let's bring him in. Should we bring him in?
I think so.
Yeah, let's bring him in.
And I want to come back to Keith's comment.
The devil will appear.
Can I just bring up Keith's comment, Scotty? Can you bring up Keith's
comment? Keith's comment. Let's see. Where is he?
Trauma took my drive away. That is very.
I saw that one. That's back a little bit. There it is.
That'll do it.
If you have a bad experience, something horrific, something said to you, a horrible experience, that will do it. That will take away the
it certainly can.
Your partner. Sometimes it's your partner that says the most rotten things to you, the most cruelest things to you, and you're like, what? And it will take it away. Absolutely. So trauma is very, very what I want to say, efficient at killing intimacy. Mm-hmm. Jason, what would you say? Because you guys were talking about this on Sunday, weren't you?
I think trauma has come up in conversation. I typically go on about the ADHD aspects with the during intimacy, where the brain just doesn't want to cooperate because it's getting
sure.
Not the brain, the block and tackle, the equipment.
Block and tackle, lack of oxygen.
Well, it's not a lack of oxygen. It's
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, no, but it's overstimulation, short circuiting things. So you never hit a climax, which is one of the things that I could complain about, because I've dealt with that being an ADHDer, and how that impacts your partner. They sit there and, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Why do you never whatever? And it's like, dude, this doesn't mean it doesn't feel amazing, because it absolutely does.
Sure.
I just have bad wiring. I'm enjoying this, and you have to learn how to adapt to that and learn to appreciate the other aspects of the act and focus on that and draw enjoyment from that, rather than climax being the end goal. It's but trauma, going to what you're talking about with trauma, or at least that topic. Mm-hmm. I have dealt with partners who have had a lot of trauma in their lives, and it wasn't always something that impacted sex necessarily, but sometimes it did. Sometimes it was more how they viewed everything that you did in general. So the intimacy got weird in terms of the emotional intimacy, the intellectual intimacy of relationships and things like that. And when I say weird, I don't mean weird like just different, awkward, not normal. Because that would impact things, how they perceive the world, how they perceive you, something you say, how they perceive something you do, and if they haven't dealt with it, they're always going to sit there and fault you rather than looking at their own issues, and that creates
Well, there are
further
people
stress
that are
and
like
tension.
that. They will always fault the other person rather than look
Jason,
inwardly.
Can I ask you, what is intimacy to you? What do you see as intimacy?
Intimacy has different levels. It is a intimacy is like, oh, there's many layers. No, but it does. It has many layers and many flavors and varieties. You know, you have emotional intimacy, you have physical intimacy. Emotional intimacy has its own facets and flavors and oddities and things like that. There are friends that you can be very, very emotionally intimate with in terms of, you know, talking about all of your worries, fears, deepest, darkest, whatever's, you know, and you know that's a person that is not a source of judgment, and you can talk about those things, just as they know you're, you know, a source of non-judgment, and they can talk about those things to you. But you guys don't have the desire to, you know, hop on the good foot and do the bad thing. And then you have, you know, your physical intimacy, but physical intimacy also ties in with emotional intimacy, and it's in its own genre. So it's not like you can just peg it down to one or two kinds of, well, here's what intimacy is, here's what intimacy is not. You know, I think intimacy becomes its own defined thing in each relationship and friendship and interaction with a person.
And would you say that, what would you do like in a situation where, like Scotty was talking about earlier on, there is the intimacy is not there and one of you doesn't want it or can't have it or whatever? What, as a man, you know, there's a feeling of perhaps understanding and also rejection as well and all kinds of things. What do you feel has been something that perhaps people could try or do? Because Rudy puts down, like, you know, he's tried many different things and it just doesn't work. What helped you or them in that situation?
Can I get that in a sentence? No.
I know the ADHD is all over the place right now, isn't it?
It kind of is, because I'm also in the process of boxing things up, sorting through things.
So what would you do if the intimacy was between you and your good other half was lacking?
I see, and this is probably one of my faults, or a virtue that turns into a fault, you know, because we can have things do that, right? But I tend to be more understanding about it because I know I've had my own issues and I've had my own struggles in general with, you know, emotional stuff, mental stuff, you know, attention, the ability to whatever, you know, this, that, and the other thing. I probably sometimes tend to be too understanding, and I'm also kind of one of those people that can very much be like, you know what, somebody's going through something. If they want to talk, they know I'm here.
Yeah.
And they'll come talk to me when they're ready, if they're ready, if they want to, whatever.
Sure.
Really. Ask the question, you know, get the response, and then it's like, all right, got it. And don't force the issue, because I know what it is to be forced into a corner to talk about something. And then you might start saying things in a way that you don't necessarily intend because you're agitated or because you're on the defensive. Sure. And you feel like you've got to, you know, to get out of the corner. And, you know, so
do
it's...
you find intimacy difficult having ADHD? Because I know with ADHD that you can, you know, it can be a real challenge.
So yes and no.
Let's ride bikes.
Right, exactly. No, it's more like intimacy can be difficult with not the right person. And when I say not the right person, I'm not saying like in the general not the right person. No, that's just not the person for you. But like people who can't understand how your mind works because you're ADHD and you make all these different associations and weird paths to get to some place, and you do the hey squirrel, hey let's ride bikes, all the stereotypes, and then all of the unknown things that most people don't realize because they're too busy laughing at ADHD kid changing a light bulb memes.
He says that to all the girls, Wendy. Sorry, chat room thing. Chat
I
room. Thing.
know. I saw.
Oh,
And may I just say to Tracy, it's the way the chat room goes. If they get caught up in football, that's what they do.
yeah.
So,
But see,
some
that's
days
the
it's
thing.
cars.
Though if I'm with someone who has similar idiosyncrasies, dude, it's on point. Like, you can sit there and talk with somebody and have your conversation go 12 million different directions, and we're all still on the same sheet of music, and that's important. So if I'm with somebody, if I'm dating someone who is like that, communication is easier because they understand how you communicate is not like, everyone else. It's totally different, and so they can sit there and follow along. But when you're with people who can't, that becomes a source of frustration. So it's harder to get intimate in terms of mental and emotionally with them, and talk in terms of conversations, opening up, because you go down these other little paths and don't necessarily bring it back. Like I've probably done about 12 times now, just in having signed on.
I get it, but
embrace this.
It's all right. Embrace it. Yes.
when we talked about intimacy, as I said, I'm one of these women that I can't get intimate unless they've got in my head. Unless the guy's in my head and he's like he can talk to me, he can make me see visions, as in like he knows how to communicate, because communication is really, really important in intimacy.
Anybody else out there listening, that doesn't mean slipping peyote into her Earl Grey. All right,
Very true.
That's not what vision means.
Absolutely.
Let's go on a vision quest together.
No, but you know what I mean?
Drink
Like,
this.
Disclaimer.
You want someone who's going to talk to you that, as she goes, they bring something to life in you, right? And
Right.
I've had lots of opportunities over the years. How you doing? Like, come back with me, and I'm like, I can't do that because I don't know this person. You're not in my head. There's not the intimate connection.
Yes.
And
It's very rare that I've run into a situation where it's like, yeah, okay, I'll play around with this. There's enough of something going on here that we'll go have fun. But typically speaking, nah. Like half the time, there's somebody out there and it'd be like, I want to get to know her. And then it's like they open their mouth and they start talking. And you're like,
it's those situations. My ex-wife, the mother of my 3 older children, when we met. What's that?
I said, as I eat my cookie.
As you eat your cookie. Yeah, we met at a bar, and it was a restaurant. It was a TGI Fridays. So we met at a TGI Fridays.
Okay.
And she was there after doing some work, and I was there to see if a friend of mine was going to show up. And we met, we talked. It started about 4:30 in the afternoon, and we were still talking at 12:30 at night. Or morning, I guess it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And she actually said to me, she said, "There's a hotel right there. We should just go over there."
Wow.
She was offering the night up. And
a damn good conversation.
It was a good conversation.
Wow.
I remember what she was wearing. I remember everything about that night. I remember what I was wearing. But the conversation had moved to the outside. I had to go because I had something to do in the morning. She had to go, and it's 12:30, and that's when she made that recommendation. There's a Radisson right there, and the same parking lot.
Something sexy about that. Don't get me wrong. There is.
What's that?
There is something very sexy about that as well.
Yeah, it is. I'm not
slamming it. And like adventuresome.
I'm not slamming it at all. But there's more to this. And my response was one that left me patting myself on the back and kicking myself in the ass at the same time, because I said, I said, as amazing as that sounds, and I'm sure we would have a great time, I said, I'd kind of like to get know you better before we take that step. Are you sure? And I said,
Going once.
no, but yes, I am. And so we parted ways. And she ended up calling me the next morning. And I said, well, I'm going to my brother's for dinner. I said, why don't you come along? And she came along with my brother. And oh, is this the new girl? I didn't even know who she was yet. And we got to know each other. And then she came over the next day. And guess what happened? We ended up in the hot tub. So I thought, okay, I know you well enough now. I'm sorry my phone's ringing. It always happens in the middle of the show.
Turn it off. You always forget.
So I always forget to turn it off.
So I always leave mine on silent no matter what.
But I will say, I only bring all that up to say, I turned it off at the beginning, congratulated myself for saying, hey, I'm doing a good thing, right? By saying, let's get to know each other. And it only took another day and a half. And we were shagging in the hot tub. And then it never ended for 12 years. So she was.
I just want to forget Rudy. Don't want to forget Rudy. Rudy
Yeah.
says, how do you bring it back when it's gone? How do you bring it back? Hi, Jason.
That is a good question. There's Jeremy. Yes. That's a good question. How do you bring it back? It's not impossible. I will bring up an example that I brought up once before on my own show. And maybe you and I have brought this up before, talked about this. But when I was I was working with a small group of men in ministry in a church many years ago now, 25 years ago. And this guy had said that he had fallen out of love with his wife. He was on the other end of that equation. And there's no intimacy. There's no nothing. How do I get that back? And I said, I got a way to make that happen. I said, but it's going to take a little work. You willing to do that? Sure. I took a legal pad and I slid it across the table to him with a pen. And I said, make a list for me right now. Make a list of the 20 things you would do to show your wife how much you appreciated her, how intimate you were with her, and how much you loved her. If you felt that way about her, what are the things you'd do? And he kind of chuckled and he said, okay. And so he made up a list. He says, there's 20 of them. We talked about them as we were going a bit. And so I took it and I ripped the paper off and I slid it across the table at him and said, now, here's my advice. You got a month. Do one of those things every day. Exhaust your list over the next month and see where you end up. I said, even if you don't feel it, I said, do it. Try it. Do those things to show your wife how much you love her, how much you appreciate her. And you know what? The last I heard, they're still married. That was 25 years ago. He did that and it worked because action is the thing that defeats inaction. That sounds so redundant. Totally. Action is the thing that defeats the things to steal that all away from you. And so Rudy said, well, I've tried that. If you're in a situation, Rudy, you asked her specifically, I'd say do those things that show her that you love her, and see what happens. And I got to tell you, there are sometimes points where you have to cut it loose. If there is nothing and there's never going to be anything and it's always going to be nothing, and you got to get real with her and say, why do you want to be here? And if you don't want to be here, and sometimes we fear saying this for fear that they'll take us up on it. And then we got to live with our
word. We're going to get rejected. That's for sure.
But I've said before, I said to my ex-wife, I said, if you don't want to be there, there's the door. That's not what I want. But if you don't want it, Nothing I can do can make you want it. You have to want it. And that's up to you. That's your part that you bring to the table.
Well, and it's hard when you have someone too, where it's like, you know, hey, if you want it, you got to show me you want it. If you don't, there's the door.
That's a harsh.
It is, but sometimes it is something that needs to be said.
Right, because you have to come to a point when you're like, I'm trying, I'm trying, and it's just not working, and you've only got this much life and this much time, and you know, if someone rejects you again and again and again, if it is rejection in that department, you know, because intimacy is very important. It's in your head. If you know, it's in your head. The connection between you is in here. It's not just about this. It's about in here. And if they're like not letting you in, and you're not able to talk to them, and you're not able to communicate with them, and they're not opening up to you, then you feel distance from them. Then that connection, that chemistry, that intimacy is not there. You've got to like have that connection. I mean, you know, I'm being honest here. Like, if someone doesn't talk to you, if someone doesn't open up to you, you start to think all kinds of things. Why don't you want me? What's wrong with me? You know, what happens? Why don't you want to spend this time with me? You have to have communication.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, naughty bits are great things. And, you know, you did the little pointing down gesture. Those are great things. But if somebody doesn't want to be there,
absolutely,
doesn't matter.
Force them.
Or if you have somebody who does want to be there, but kind of going back to where I came into the show earlier, the traumatic part, you have people who literally fight themselves without even realizing it.
Right.
They want something, but because of their traumas, because of how they view the lens through which they view the world, impacts everything they do, and they don't realize it. They don't see it. They can want something to the moon and back, but they don't let themselves do that. And, you know, I've had those situations where you're sitting there on the couch and it's like, well, I want to solve this so we can go forward. And then they just launch into whatever it was, you know, that they wanted to try to hit me with, you know, which is typically something driven by their insecurities, driven by their traumas. And that's not a fault on them. People have done things to them to put them into that mental state.
We all operate out of those things.
And we do all operate out of that. So you can't fault someone for having traumas and having trauma responses. You kind of can if they never do anything about it when they realize it. But, you know, I've had to sit there and just launch right into, you know, whatever the topic was. And it turns into one of those things where it's like, you know what, I love this woman very much, and I you know, I love her son, and her family's great, and all of this stuff. But I'm not. I can't stick around for this.
Sure.
Because here's a person who won't let themselves look past their own traumas. That won't get past that point. You know, and really. Actually would frequently project onto me. You know,
well,
it's like
Jeremy,
it's a toxic environment.
Jeremy had something he wanted to add into this too.
Well, I've been married now 21 years. A lot of girlfriends and an ex-wife before that. And so I've learned a few things about this. And one, I think when it comes to sex in general, most of the time, men are on a completely different planet than women are. And
that's true.
When Ms. Robertson said, I have to be in the right headspace, I was like, that is exactly like every single woman I've ever met. Because a guy doesn't care about headspace. He doesn't even care in the space where it could be middle of the day, middle of the night.
And legs. And
right. And then
naughty bits.
I think from a guy, even with sex, I think from a guy's point of view, when you get turned off is when you've been disrespected, or that projection that you've been disrespected. And then you use that as a leverage tool to cut out.
Uh-oh.
We lost it. Oh my God, this is a good bit as well.
Right there. Just on the precipice.
We're not going to hear the end of the sentence.
God. Well, never know.
Jeremy, you froze up, brother.
But I mean,
Oh, there
what,
he is.
Well,
Okay,
Kind of.
what was it, Jeremy? Go for it again. We were just in that
We
minute.
missed the climax of the sentence. Went away.
Oh, sorry. Well, and I think women a lot of times, like he was saying, they will project things on you, and they will use sex as a leveraging tool to get that intimacy and loving feeling that they want, and you can end up pushing the two people apart. Simply because of the differences and not understanding what you both want going in, because I think a relationship takes on its own entity. So you do some things in that relationship that you wouldn't normally do for yourself, for that other person. And if that's gone, there is going to be a lack of something in that relationship. And it usually ends up the last thing being sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got you and them and then the relationship, and it's like the relationship is the third person, and you have to invest in the relationship and take care of it. It's not all about her, it's not all about him, it's about the relationship. And if you cared to get in it, if you pursued it, if you wanted it, if you've invested a lot of time in it, then you've got to, you know, feed it and keep it well, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but it's like, what do you do if you're with someone and whether you've been with them for a short time, whether you've been with them for a long time, you know, what would you do if nothing you did worked and they
Well, I
just
think
kept distance? Or
I'm
intimacy?
glad you brought that up. 21 years I've been with my wife. The other night for Christmas, I got her like this real expensive lotion. I went to rub her back. Well, lo and behold, she had like on this lingerie thing. Okay. Well, I was going to be the good guy.
Thing.
I'm going to rub her back with this lotion and then
And now
not
it turns
touch her.
into the stereotype. I
And
see
now
what it is.
No, we don't want
This
to
is
get
what-
that lingerie soiled with this expensive
Hang on,
lotion.
Let
Well,
Ryan
it was like,
let him speak. What is it you're saying, honey?
well, 2 days later, she said, "You didn't even touch me when I had that on the other night." And my goal was to control myself as a man and do the right thing, give her a back rub to show her, but it backfired on me. So after 21 years, I can say that I really don't know anything more than I knew about her to begin with, but that is the adventure of it. I love that.
I
I
tell you
have
what.
to keep doing good.
I tell you what, though. You here's the fun thing with that particular instance. You tried to show your will and your strength and your maturity and your emotional maturity and your physical maturity and capability to, you know, do the right thing, not always make it about trying to get your rocks off or whatever. And then you got chastised for it. But what would happen if you gave her the back rub and then, oh, hey, back rub turned into hide the salami? You didn't even rub my back long enough. This is just even.
Yeah. There is a
And you wonder
dangerous
why guys
end
have
to
problems.
to both ends of that, because
But isn't that
you
the
know,
fun
I
adventure
gave
of it?
my wife not long ago, I gave her a full body massage. That thing lasted an hour and a half. We set up the massage table because remember she's a massage therapist. Set up her massage table in the bedroom. Had music going on the TV and the whole low light, and I did the whole massage thing. I mean, I touched every centimeter of her body with lotion, and I didn't do anything. And I felt
Pretty easy to
rather,
do when you just paint it on with a brush, Scotty.
yeah, I felt rather proud, and it was like,
But
you
do you
know.
not feel though that if to actually have your partner not give you that intimacy, to not give you that time, it can make you feel, and you can try everything you can under the sun. I mean, if you have to go, I always think counseling is I'm a counselor, right? But I always think counseling is the last thing that people try. They try everything else first. But say you're with a woman and she just doesn't want sex. You know, she just doesn't want sex. She doesn't feel it. She's got issues there. She just doesn't want sex. And you what do? You can only do so much. You can't, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Is she loyal?
I'm just talking in general.
Well, I know, but you've thrown up this scenario, so now I have questions about the scenario.
Let's say yes.
Is she loyal?
Yes, of course.
She's completely 110% loyal. All right, cool.
Or she
That's
might
fine.
have thought about, you
know what? If she's not running around, screwing around, doing whatever, she's got her own thing going on. And you know what? when she's ready to talk about it or ready to work through it or decides to work through it, then that's cool. I don't need, and again, I'm speaking from my foxhole, right? Everybody has their own view of the world. But for me, it's not something where I would go try to chase around or try to push an issue, because I'm probably more adaptable to situations than I really should be. But it's, it's one of those things where it's just like, all right, here's what it is. If I absolutely have to have a climax, I've got a hand. Like, I can take care of it. It's way more important for me anyway, because of my own issues, which I've mentioned earlier, to have a closer, intimate relationship. If we can still talk and conversate about everything, then
I got to interrupt you, and I got to say, the couple that is intimate with each other, into each other, loves each other. I don't think the guy should ever have to resort to autosexuality.
Right. There's
and the same with the woman, because they understand each other's needs.
Yeah.
What's wanted. They talk about it. And if they don't feel like it one night, that might be the only time you resort to that, because you've talked about it, you've communicated.
But what happens?
I really don't feel like it tonight, but I'll get you on Thursday night.
What is on the other foot, where the woman, wants to be intimate and the man doesn't, and you want that, and it's problem. Like it's not happening. It's and you want.
Well, as a man and under the societal pressures and constructs established over the last millennia, I'm gonna have to go ahead and John Wayne up and just do what I gotta do.
That's right.
My feelings don't matter.
You'll like it.
My feelings don't matter at all. So let me just go break out the figurative saddle for my face or whatever. I don't know. Like, silliness aside.
How long is that? Like, when she's talking, how long is she talking about here for this woman not wanting to?
Well, right, and that's a great. We have so many unknowns. We need more data.
What I'm trying to say is, women in general, if they're with someone, a long-term partner, or someone they've been with short, whatever it is, if you're with someone who can't have sex or doesn't want sex, or there's an issue, and what do you do as a woman to help in that department? Because obviously some ladies, they don't know what to do. We don't know what goes on in a guy's head sometimes. We don't know how you guys tick. And do we do this? Do we say this? Do we do that? Because,
we're thinking about the Roman Empire and car parts. There's not much to get in there. Yeah. Right. How many times a week do you think about the Roman Empire, Scotty? Daily, weekly? Yeah.
Be serious, Jason. I shall spank you. Come on.
I look at it differently. If it's a woman thing and she can't have sex, and I'm talking physically, whatever, that is completely different. I'm here for better or worse.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, exactly.
However, if she comes out to me and says, well, I don't feel like it, that's fine. You got 6 months, 7 months, 8 months to work through that. And if not, I have, I think that I've put enough into the relationship. I owe it to myself to be able to be happy. Obviously, I'm not going to be happy. She's not going to. I would end the relationship after 8 months if it was her choice. If it was physically, I'm with her, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a purposeful thing, why? Like, that's, and there's nothing even going on. There's no, like, if there's no effort being made, like, hey, I'm feeling this way and I don't understand it. I'm gonna talk to my therapist. I'm gonna go have 12 million gallons of blood drawn and have hormone tests, whatever, right? The case may be. If there isn't some level of actively trying to, like, okay, this probably isn't normal. Let's try to figure out what's going on here. And it's just well, I don't feel that way. And that's it.
Right.
There's no effort, then yeah, I'm kind of with you that, you start looking towards ending things or speaking up more. But, sometimes people just can't help it. And it's like, what kind of person are you that if you have this person that you love more than life itself and everything in the world, that, like, can't be intimate, can't get to a point where it's going to be, because physical injuries, hormone issues, massive trauma that occurred mentally, whatever. Who the hell are you to sit there and say that, what, I'm going to be super judgmental of this person going through this thing and I'm pulling the ejection handle?
Yeah.
No, because then you're going against everything that you say you stand for.
Yeah.
So, They know.
Exactly.
It's
Well,
yeah.
it is now 2 hours in to the show,
Very interesting topic.
and we've got to start
Not allowed
wrapping
to
up.
leave. You're not allowed to leave. Sorry. The show must go
Yeah, you
on.
can't go.
It must go on.
You don't have to go home.
I'll say
but
my
you can't
piece and
stay
jump
here.
out, brother.
Well, we can always go to onto the other one. But yes, I'm interested in what you wanted to say. Your point, because I see you were beavering trying to get it in. Go for it.
Which one of us?
You.
No. I can't say his name. I'm so sorry. His name's
Jeremy.
Jeremy.
I'm so sorry. Your name's
Okay.
not.
So I think, you always hear guys say, well, if there was a book about women and you could understand them, then you'd be a billionaire. Here's
It's
the thing.
IKEA instructions.
Yeah, right. Well, but this is what's great about life. The more we don't know about it, like my wife just astonishes me sometimes. And I'm like,
Yeah.
God damn, I love that woman because it blows my mind. And it wouldn't be there if I knew the ins and outs like a mechanic's book. I wouldn't know that.
Right.
So it's the stuff that drives me nuts that literally keeps us together. And, now that I know that, and it's been a few years, I am totally in love with her more and more every day. I don't think I'll ever have this problem, but I can definitely see when there was. So my advice to people that are having that problem is simply start looking through the wonder of the things that you don't understand and quit hating it and try to see it for literally the glorious thing that it really is. And that, I think, if you do that, it fixes most of your relationship.
There it is.
You guys are awesome. I love you.
You are, Jeremy. Love you. Good to talk to you, brother. Glad
You
to have
too.
you in.
Poor
All
Jeremy.
right. And Jason?
Sorry, I
you,
talk
brother.
too much.
No, you don't.
What are we going to do with you, Jason? What are we going to do?
You don't talk too much. We just don't have enough hours.
Which implies I talk too much.
Well, we watched you stuff your face with cakes yet again. How cruel are you?
I had a cookie, not a cake.
Well, it looked like a cake to
Well,
me.
they call them.
I believe you would call them biscuits.
Biscuits.
Was it a chocolate chip biscuit?
No, it's
That was John Ward when we were in Egypt.
It's
all
peanut
the time,
butter.
and he would say,
Oh,
"Scotty, I got your favorite cookie. Or I got your favorite biscuits.
with peanut butter,
fig biscuits. Fig biscuits." I go, "What's a fig
How do
biscuit?"
you eat all that stuff?
And he was
still-
talking about fig Newtons. Oh,
raspberry
dude, there it is.
cheesecake.
That's
How
it. The
how do
cheesecake
you
cookie.
have a great figure and eat all
I
that
don't have a great figure actually. I just know how to dress for my horrible
Oh.
dimensions.
He
Yeah.
knows how to eat for
Sorry,
his
hate
not
to
great figure.
burst the bubble and ruin the.
That's right. Ruin the
fantasy.
picture.
I disagree because in the day, every time I see you, you're shoving something down your throat.
Fig Newton's Field Guy are the best cookie.
He
No,
is
I'm
though. Have
just
you not
saying.
noticed that, Scotty?
That's because it's not a cookie. It's
on your
too-
show.
It's a
It's
Newton.
fruit.
It's like shoving something down his the other night, and he was like, ah, and I'm like, what? How does
Me
he
or
fit that big-
Me.
or him?
Who's the one who's guilty of eating on camera all the time? It's me. It's me. I got it.
I had chips last week once, and I was munching away at chips in the captain's cabin. 'Cause
I don't
starving.
have them. It seems like I am every time, but what it typically is I will get a box of like 4 or 6, and then I'll have them. I'll be like, okay, I'm going after this one today. Cut it in half. I'll take the half. I'll put the rest in the fridge,
Right.
and then attack it a day or two later. So
I
it just
want
happens.
one of those. I really want one of those. They look really
Crumble cookies.
They do
Crumble
look good.
cookies is the name of the company.
I don't have them here.
You guys have got a Five Guys burgers. You should be able to get a crumble cookie. Come on.
I once dated a guy who actually sent me 6 cupcakes in the post, right? 6 cupcakes.
And they survived?
They did, because it came from a special company, that did it. And I opened up this beautiful box and they had all these different cupcakes. And I know they do them with cookies and biscuits as well. And it's like, isn't that a nice present to actually get that? You'd love that sort of present, wouldn't you?
I do love that sort of thing. That I'm a
So
sucker
do
for
I.
food.
Frankly.
You, Scotty, do you like it too?
That's one of those things. There's really not a lot to figure out about guys, ladies. All right. If we are sitting there in bed, it is just like the memes where the chick is like,
Yes.
"I'm thinking about other women," and the guy sitting there overside looking all serious is like, "Man, okay, so
How many pubs of jelly they put in this?
I've got spark, I've got fuel, I've got compression. I can't figure out why the engine's not running, or whatever with the Roman Empire. Like that is literally the kind of just garbage that floats around in our head when we are not doing stuff and actively focused on things.
Right. That's right.
And then you guys remember that, and then food.
Yeah.
Food. The key to a man's heart is not through the fly of his pants.
Oh,
It is through his stomach.
Well, maybe
It's
not
through his stomach.
every man, but yes, I know what you're saying.
Now,
I just
even
took that
those
stuff
guys,
down with Wendy the other day.
if you kept them well fed, all right, they would change. They would tell you it's food. I'm telling you, good food.
I once told an old pastor friend of mine. He was my pastor at the time when I was divorced from my first wife, and I said, my only weaknesses are blondes, naked blondes, and pastries. And I said, you put the two together, I said, you won't see me in church for months. And he said, well, we'll do our best to be your support system. So he was very, very cool about it. Jason, I got to let you go because
Yes.
we got to go. Good to talk to you, brother.
Always.
We'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good.
Oh, I cut off his later.
Leaders.
All right.
How you feeling? You done so well.
Well, I have, as I said to Rainey, she said, "Are you sure you can do this show today? Because you have no voice." And I said, the more I talk, I was in about an hour-long conversation with Jeremy before this show about totally unrelated things. And I said, the more I talked, the more it warmed up. She said, well, let's see where you're at when you're done. So far, so good.
And I just want to say that we are like a family. This, this podcast and your one and the Intrepid Radio and obviously Wicked Women, there is a great family support from all you guys, and we really do appreciate you coming on and being with us and supporting us. It really means a lot. And Scotty felt like crap, and he's like, no, we're going to do this, and he's going to go off and just collapse now. So thank you everyone. And thank you, Scotty, for coming on tonight. And
thank you for having me.
Anytime, darling.
You can have me anytime you want.
Actually, 67 is a great year for cars. I'm just saying. 67. Can't beat it, but there you go. But listen, you did brilliantly. Well done.
Well, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. And let's see what a good night of sleep does if I get one.
Yes.
So, all right. And I like the mood. The mood is nice tonight. I like the lights tonight. I didn't bring up the other lights because the blue light is on, and I could go to sleep in this.
I actually think that the chat rooms took a life on its own now because I'm just watching.
It did tonight. Yeah, it does that sometimes.
I don't see it after the show's finished. Does it actually stay on YouTube now, the chat show, or what? The chats.
The chat, everybody, you can look at their little icon by their picture when they're chatting. That shows where they're chatting from. Most people are getting this in the YouTube.
It's coming from YouTube. But when the show's finished, can people still see the chat? Because I know YouTube.
I think until I discontinue the broadcast. When I discontinue it, it lasts for you can't chat past the delay. There's like a 30-second delay.
Thank you, Steph.
You're welcome.
And we will see you next week for another interesting topic on Robertson.
We'll come up with something, I'm sure, or you guys will.
Who's going to point this out and say, Scotty, you should chat about this. And don't forget, we'll be back tomorrow. Are you coming back tomorrow or not sure?
What's tomorrow?
You're Intrepid.
Oh, Intrepid tomorrow night. All depends on how tomorrow goes. I had the sore throat yesterday and a little bit the day before. Today, it took my voice away, and I was tired, and I slept half the day. And tomorrow, we'll see what happens. So, I'll be here for Intrepid tomorrow night if I can, if I'm good.
Well, whatever happens, we will see you guys next week. Scotty will be back on Intrepid, and I will see you guys on Sunday for Wicked Women, which hopefully Scotty will come and join because we loved having you.
It's fun.
It's always nice when you turn up, Scotty, and those dulcet tones are going.
Yes. I enjoy that.
We enjoy having you.
I will talk to you soon, darling.
Love you.
All right, everybody else, live long and prosper.